All right.
All right, Mike, we are live. So I'll go ahead and do the introduction.
Okay.
Welcome, everybody, while you still get everything wrapped up there. All right. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Hanging Out with Pros webinar with Mike Morris. I just want to welcome everyone. Just say thank you for joining us. This is something we're both super excited for. Right now, it looks like we got a pretty good number of viewers for the moment, and we're kind of gonna set this up the same way that Smith Micro does with their webinars, except less formal. We'll have a little bit of fun with it. So right now, we're just basically going to go over just what we're going to talk about, answer some questions. I'll introduce Mike, do a little bit of Q&A at the end. If you have any questions, there's the chat window there on the side. So if you want to talk to Mike, we can definitely ask him some questions there. And yeah, let's basically go ahead and get started. So I'm here with Mike Morris. Let me go ahead and take this off my screen here. All right. Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Hey, guys. How's it going? How you doing, McCoy?
It's going good. I'm doing good. All right. So, Mike, tell us a little about yourself. What do you do?
I right now am working at Disney Television Animation. I'm a storyboard supervisor on Disney XD's Future Worm, which is going to be an awesome show, by the way. It's coming out this summer. So I spend my days doing storyboards and reviewing stories.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, how long have you been doing that?
You mean animation as a career or animation at Disney?
Well, yeah. Tell us when you started as animation with a career, and then how long you've been at Disney.
Well, I got out of CalArts in 2006, and I went immediately. Almost. I had a summer break, and then I went to work on The Simpsons in September of that same year. They were actively recruiting for the Simpsons movie that was going on, and they were needing people for the television show. So I got in and rode that wave of hiring, and it was very fortunate that I got that because there wasn't really a ton of projects going on in Burbank at the time. So I did that for a few years, and then I found out Princess and the Frog was going on over at Disney Feature Animation. Mm-hmm. So I went over and talked with a couple of guys over there and got into the talent development program and became an assistant animator for Eric Goldberg for a little while. And that was an amazing education experience. And Eric is awesome, super nice guy. We got to work on, he was working on Louis the Alligator, and he let me do some in-betweens here and there. And then let's see, what else? Then I went back to The Simpsons for a while and stayed there for another 5 years, I think. And then just this last May, I left to go to Disney to do storyboards.
That is awesome. That's so cool. So it's this summer. When did you say Future Worm comes out?
Future Worm comes out this summer.
This summer. Okay. All right. That's awesome. I'm excited.
On Disney XD.
Disney XD. Very cool. Very cool. And then at the end, definitely we're gonna have the links and everything to Mike's channels, his Facebook page and everything. So we'll we'll go over that at the end of the of the of the webinar. Sorry guys, I'm obviously new to this, so first time. But all right, that's very cool, Mike. All right, so what do you enjoy most about what you do?
There's a lot of things to enjoy about working in animation. I mean, you make cartoons for a living, and how awesome is that? One of the things that I really like about working in animation is that I'm one of the lucky few that can say, like, yeah, this is what I wanted to do for a living, and now I'm doing it. And that is a pretty cool feeling to have, you know. I feel very fortunate and very, blessed to be in the position that I'm in.
Yeah. No, that's so cool. That's so awesome. So it was the Simpsons movie, and then you did the storyboard on the Simpsons movie? Is that what?
No, I was a character layout artist on the Simpsons movie. I worked on the Simpsons movie for about a week, but I got in on character layout. which is usually in the entry position on The Simpsons, and they're the last show in Hollywood that still does character layout, which is basically key animation. And at the time, we were working on paper, which was really cool. So, I mean, that was kind of what I was used to. And then we went digital, I think, in 2009. And now it's just digital drawing in Storyboard Pro and Harmony. But yeah, that's kind of what I was doing at the time.
Very cool. That's awesome. So it's did you say it was Toon Boom Harmony that you mainly work on as far as the animations and things like that? Is that at Disney that you're doing that, Toon Boom Harmony?
Oh yeah, it was at Disney and at The Simpsons.
And at The Simpsons. Okay.
Yeah, cool. That's just what the shop uses, but that is in no way an endorsement or anything. Since we're talking about Anime Studio Pro, man.
Yeah, exactly. No, as far as Anime Studio, any chance on getting Anime Studio over to Disney?
We'll try. Okay. It's just cool. It all depends on them.
Awesome. All right, Mike. Well, let's go over the topic that you're going to be covering. You're going to be covering setting your rig up for different camera shots. So I'll go ahead and give you the floor, and we'll go over what you got there.
Okay, man. Well, let me switch over to my other screen here. Okay, let me get a file up. Animation files. Okay. My wife and I made a film a little while back. And it was for a contest for Discover. Let me, okay, here we go. Do you see that?
Yeah, yep, we see it on our end, yep.
So this is a little caricature of my wife. And this is the base rig. So there's no animation applied to it. If we go on frame 1 here, you can see there's a head turn, and it goes up and down, and those work in conjunction with one another. And then these, it's kind of subtle, but can you see the eyes slanting back and forth? Getting bigger, getting blinking wide. And then this was the dials for these side ones are curvature of the mouth. This is happy and sad. You know what? These should have labels to them. I don't know why it's not showing it. And then this one here is, I think that was supposed to be torso turn. Oh, sorry. That one right there is the mouth controller. So that one you can use for squashing and stretching, you know, the mouth, and then, you know, moving it around as needed. You know. So let's see. And then we have over here open, wide, and closed. So now if we take these two and turn them down, you know, it gives a nice closed mouth without too much hassle or a sad face or, you know, whatever is needed for that. And then the rig is controlled by this main bone for the main body. And, you know, I had to work out some of this stuff. You can see it's breaking right here with the hair. So some of that I had to manually go back and tweak in the actual animation, but, you know, the arms work fairly well. I did some shoulders on this rig, so the shoulders could have a little bit of play in them. You know, let's make her smile. She's a happy person. And then, you know, these sort of rigs. I did the whole film in 3 weeks, so that was definitely a lot of work in 3 weeks. But then I took this same rig and made a version of myself from the original rig of my wife, so I could repurpose a lot of that same animation. So you can see how the torso in this one is moving back and forth a little bit. Let's see if I could get that one. I might have to go to an updated rig of this one. Let's see, open.
And then while you're looking for that, Mike, what if, let's see here, we got a question as far as how long it takes you usually to make a rig like that.
I don't know. This one, I kind of had a good idea of what I wanted to do right out the gate. So, oh yeah, there you see. You can see the body shifting back and forth. So you could see, you know, how the eyes are maybe slant. Let's zoom in on that pretty good. See, the eyes are kind of slanting back and forth. So when her head was turned and raised, you'd slant those eyes, so it made her look like she was looking in one direction.
Awesome.
So, and then this was a bit of animation that we ended up doing with that one, just as a test. So, you know, she does a little wave. But yeah, then I got to repurpose a lot of that stuff for this rig. So I had added the glasses level, went back into the actions, and changed that up. And then, of course, the eyes still move in that same manner. And they get bigger and shut. And then the mouth works essentially the same. You know, and then I had that control bone there. Then everything works similarly. The legs aren't perfect, but I wasn't using it for a lot of heavy, like walking or anything like that. But let me show you the film really quickly. I'm not sure how well it's going to play, but we'll try. Okay. So
My first credit card was a Discover card, and we used it to buy everything. Over the years, our home was completed, but our family wasn't. Our only option became to turn to fertility specialists. We didn't know how we were going to pay, but we scheduled it anyway. We tried bank after bank after bank. The day before the procedure, we thought we had run out of options, but Discover was there for us again. We used Discover to build our home. We used Discover to build our family.
So awesome. That was a little piece that I did. That was the one that took 3 weeks. So you can see a lot of it got reused. A lot of these characters got reused. Let me open a scene from that film. We'll go back to the animation files. So let's see, what's number 3? That's not one. Here we go. Here's the one where all the furniture pops up. So those things are just, you know, popping on screen. And that was something that I just did in the sequencer. So you can see where things are popping up and where they're, you know, cutting off. And then I used reference layers to just pull those characters in from the original models. So just modeling the character and rigging it in its most basic form, and then going through and taking whatever specialty that I needed to take. Because later on in the film, I grow a beard. So let's see. No, not that one. Not that one. Not that one. Yeah, this one. So you can see now I'm balder, and I've grown a beard. So, and you can't really see it very well in this one, but the gradient there has been altered. So if you click on it, you can see the original one, but then I altered the gradient on the hair and in the beard, and so it made it so I could reuse that rig fairly easily, just changing a couple of things.
Very cool. That's awesome.
So this film was all about economy and getting it finished really quickly. Almost everything was done in grayscale, so I could go back in and color it all in post, whatever color I wanted to, in like a monochromatic sort of format.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love how simple those character designs are as well. Those are really neat.
Thanks.
And then do you have this on like a YouTube channel of yours or something as well? This video?
I had it on my Facebook page on Animator Art on Facebook. So it's up there. That's the only place I posted it.
Okay, very cool. We'll have to leave. We have a link for that one down in the description, correct?
Yes, we should.
Okay. Awesome. Very cool.
So Anime Studio is really good if you're doing films in an economical sort of way. It really shines with characters that you can reuse over and over and over again. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can do some really complex stuff in Anime Studio, as with you can see with some of Victor's films that he's done. You can do some really amazing stuff. I, as a filmmaker, a lot of time am looking for economy in my filmmaking, something that I can do and put out there fairly quickly. So Anime Studio also really shines with that, especially with the addition of reference layers in version 11.
Very cool. Very cool. So this was done in version 11, is that correct? You're talking about reference layers?
Yeah, this was done in version 11.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. I'm looking through here real quick as we're just kind of going along, see if there's any questions coming up about this. But so here you mentioned time versus great filmmaking is good when you're doing storyboard economy. But then you mentioned in here and the danger of noodling. What's that term as far as noodling?
Noodling is an animation term where you just keep reworking the same thing over and over and over again, and it ends up becoming mush. Imagine for yourself that, everybody's done this. They've been to college. You make a cup of top ramen, and then you let it sit. If you let it sit too long, it eventually just becomes this mushy bowl of nothing. Whereas if you do it and you get it still where it's pretty fresh, it'll still taste good. So it's just taking something and just working it over and over and over and over again until it's lost any kind of vitality that it had originally.
Okay. And then, so going over, so you are the expert with storyboards. So when you go to like storyboard planning, let's see here, what is the extent to which your character has to perform?
I think that's mainly you look at the storyboards and you see what action that you have to perform in there. Say you have a chase scene and you have like a ninja running along something and he has to jump up. It says you ended the presentation somehow.
Oh, no, you're still there.
Oh, still there? Okay, sorry. Yeah. Something came up. So if you're going to rig that ninja to be jumping up and down over cliffs and grabbing onto rooftops or whatever.
Oh. Let's see here. Mike, you still there? Can you still hear me?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Kind of cut out a little bit there.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So when you're going over what your story is, you need to see what all your character is going to have to do in the story. Because at the end of the day, Anime Studio is a tool for filmmaking. And that's what we're doing, is we're making films. We're not just making animation for the sake of animation. Unless you're doing some sort of like, animated GIF you're going to stick on Facebook or something. That's just kind of fun and silly for a little thing.
Right.
But filmmaking, I think, is what we're all trying to strive for, making cartoons, making something. So you have to go through your storyboard and figure out what your character is going to need to do within that story.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And then when you go down to your rig, do you have like a rig you could break down here? As far as like your different shots here, let's talk about, let's see.
Well, let's talk about this film. Let me screen share back again.
Okay.
Okay, got me?
Yep, you're there.
Okay, cool. So in this film, let me open up another one of the files here. That's not the one I'm looking for. Here we go. So it starts with my wife here. And this one I actually did in color. The file is actually in color because it needed to be for the orange of the card. Because of the way I was doing it in post with the grayscale, I had to, stage it, or I had to set this file up in such a way where it was already colored so it could have two different colors in it. And me not having to rotoscope a ton of stuff. So this starts like this and zooms out, and she picks up the card, and then you see my character kind of slides in. Oh my gosh, look, you got a new credit card. And so this is the establishment of the two characters, right? And then we go to the next scene here, and this one's done in the grayscale. And it's just us holding hands and a very simple rig of this gentleman here. So we have the clerk who only has like a few bones in him because he didn't need that many. All he has is this head bone, the mouth bone, and the main bone, and then this little hand one, because it didn't need to be that complex. So that's another thing that I think a lot of people should think about is rigging for the scene. Sometimes all you need is one thing for one scene, and so you don't need to make a whole big hero rig. And by hero rig, I mean somebody that's going to be like a main character and has a more advanced model. Some don't need to be hero rigs. All they need to be is like something that can do a very simple action. But here is a reference layer of my character right here, and then another reference layer of my wife's character. So we got that, reuse of the original two models. And we kept reusing the two models over and over and over again. But I staged it in such a way that that's all I needed. In the actual film, I staged the characters in such a way that I wouldn't need to go into really elaborate rigging in order to make the film.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, and that's basically the point of this webinar is when you set up your rigs, you want to set it up for the different shots, kind of like your salesman there. That's a perfect example. Just a really simple rig. He's only going to be doing one basic pose. Don't need to have to make them quite advanced or anything like that because he's just doing the one, just like that, just tapping on the bed there. So no, that's really cool because I remember when I first started out, I tried to make like the perfect rig and make it do everything, even for like the characters that aren't hardly even gonna be moving, because I thought I'd be able to use it elsewhere. But yeah, no, that's a really good point.
Well, I mean, if you have, and I'm gonna cut back to me again real quick.
Oh, darn it! It keeps on. Sorry, guys. Having a little bit of technical difficulties there.
I have a character. What happened?
It kind of keeps on cutting out on your end. But just go ahead. After you ended the screen share, you were saying something.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, am I visible?
You're visible.
Okay. Darn, what was I saying?
Oh man.
Okay, so gosh, what was I saying?
Yeah, it cut out like right as you were speaking. So we were talking about reference layers,
And only having to rig for the one action.
Oh yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, hero rigs. We were talking about hero rigs. So if you are going to be getting a character that you know you're going to be reusing, say for like a short web series or a feature film or something like that, then you can really go into depth on that character and make your rig as cool as it can possibly be. You know, with 360 head turns and all these expressions and special poses and switch layers, you can do all of that stuff for your hero rig. But for little things that are just going to be populating the environment or you know, stuff like a character who's only going to perform one or two actions, you don't need to be all complicated with that rig. You can just make it as simple for what you needed for the shot and call it a day.
Yeah. No, that's very true. One of the questions that came up here, Mike. Let's see here. Let's see. It was on topic of what we were just looking at. Let's see where it was at. Sorry, I just lost track of the chat here. It's froze on my side. I can't scroll up. Okay. Well, I guess kind of off topic. As far as Anime Studio in general, Mike, how long did it take you to learn Anime Studio? Would you say it's like get the grasp of it?
It took me a lot longer because I didn't have as much time to sit down with it and just, you know, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was working, I could only do it, you know, nights and whenever I had a little bit of free time. So it took me about a year to get fairly proficient in it, but that's with very sporadic use.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I
In
can
a
say
production
it definitely took me
environment,
a lot longer.
yeah, in a production environment, I think it would be a lot faster because you kind of sink or swim.
Good point. Yep. So it's, okay, here it was. So going to like animations, what's kind of like the most complex animation you've made?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good
I guess
question.
in Anime Studio. I want to specify
Anime Studio.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff for a promo I did for, I have a Facebook page called Awesome Dudeness that I need to get back to working on again. I made a film for that, and there was some dancing cycles that I did in Anime Studio. Let me see if I can find those really quickly. Oh yeah, I think they're up here. This is one of the more complex things that I've done.
Is your screen share on?
Yeah, and that had to be timed a little bit differently in post.
Oh, Mike, real quick, turn your screen share. It's not sharing your screen. What you're seeing there.
Not sharing my screen. Okay, let's fix that, shall we? Okay, because I don't think you're gonna want to catch the reflection in my glasses. So this was kind of an opening thing, and let me see if I can just mute the audio real quick. Well, no, let's just let play.
Yeah, just let it play out.
So So that circle held for a little while, and then lines started to zoom out from it. And that opens up into a big party. So that's what this blank part is. It opens up into a big party of people dancing all over the place.
That's so cool.
But let's see. Another thing. This was a character that I made strictly for a dance cycle. And this does not contain her dance cycle. This is another character I made for a dance cycle, but also the wrong rig. Dang it.
That's all right. To be fair, everyone, Mike and I, we had very little time to go over everything. Had about 15 minutes to get everything set up, so bear with us.
Here's the dance cycle. Here's what that rig eventually did. All right, let me loop that. So
Very
that's
cool.
what that candy rig there eventually did. And then this robot one, let me grab some more of these files from the promo of see, there was a contest that Awesome Dudeness held for dance cycles, and you won a Cintiq from it, the Cintiq companion, and that happened last year, and it turned out pretty cool. It was more a lot of work. Ended up being a ton of work.
I bet.
So let's see, what do we got here? This character, who is our little DJ for that project. He had to just sit there and kind of bebop around, but his hair is all, if you zoom in on this, the hair is all dynamic bones.
Mm-hmm.
And then he, in another scene, like puts up the equalizer. Let me see. What's some other stuff?
That's cool, Mike. And then while you're looking for that file, we got a couple more questions filing in here. Just want to let everyone know, I forgot to mention this in the beginning, but we're going to be ending around 9:30 ish there. So we'll try to keep it into about an hour there.
It's Mountain Standard Time.
Yeah. Oh, man. It's just been one thing after another today. So I'm just kind of off my game.
Here on the West Coast.
Yeah.
But here's a couple little dance cycles from my robot guy and a mime guy that I did. So I mean, just really simple stuff there. This robot rig is really fun now, because he has some little controls in here. Oops, let me move on to a frame that I actually can animate. So this guy, he can go up and down like that, and his head can go back and forth, and his little claw hands can pop open and close. But I was kind of proud of the way that this got set up, so he can go up and down any which way.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So.
Man, those are cool rigs. So simple too.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to get like crazy complex to make good animation.
Mm-hmm.
It's always fun to see really complex animation. I mean, you watch any of these anime movies that are coming out that are like the higher tier ones.
Uh-huh.
Those look incredible.
Yeah.
And but that's not where a lot of people get their start. You don't have to start in complex. I mean, you build up to complex.
Right. Yeah.
Start simple and go to complex. Let's see, what else have I got going on here? Let's see. No, it's the wrong file. Oh, here was one of the ones that I did, and we had a foreshortening question, right?
Yep. Let's yeah, go ahead and answer the foreshortening question there.
So let's see the question. Repeat the question, will you?
Yeah. So let's take a look here. So when it comes to creating poses with foreshortened limbs, should this be approached by hiding limbs and drawing frame by frame over top, or how do you go about doing that with foreshortening?
Okay, well, for foreshortening, there's a couple different ways you can approach this. The first is the way I did it in this rig is with smart actions, and I was able to just build that straight into the rig. So these bones here moving the arms, let's go into this frame here. So I was able to build in that head tilt here.
Mm-hmm.
So his head goes back in perspective. And then let's see, where's that? But in this action here, this bone, the smart action was built in a way that it foreshortens instantly as it gets turned. And I didn't have to necessarily worry about, because there is a barrier right here,
mm-hmm.
which is the DJ stand. So in the animation, I didn't necessarily have to worry about how the hand rig, as long as it kept before it popped like that,
mm-hmm.
I didn't have to worry about rigging the hand perfectly. And then it goes boom when it hits in the music.
That's awesome. And then so for that foreshortening, is it when you rotate the angle of the bone, is it just points that are basically just point animation there that's just shrinking, or
it's scale and point. It's a little column A, little column B. I mean, you can also use an alternate limb in a switch layer. Like you can set up a switch layer and as a couple different bone layers inside.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting about switch layers is if it's a bone with vector layers inside of it, that bone layer becomes the switch number.
Okay.
So you can conceivably set any number of different arms inside. You just have to animate the arms separately.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And then let's see here. One of the other questions that we had, Mike, when we first set this up on the group, let's see here. Let's try to get to those. So as far as building your rigs versus manually manipulating the drawings by hand, let's see here. How much do you try to build into your rigs versus manually manipulating the drawings by hand as you go?
I try to avoid breaking the rig as much as possible unless I don't have to show the broken part. Mm-hmm. But I it goes back to storyboard analysis. What does your character have to do? What do they have to perform? What's the action that they have to take care of? What kind of emotion do you have to convey with that character? So, I mean, I try to limit that as much as possible. But, I mean, if there's some things you kind of have to do in point animation. Mm-hmm. You can break the rig occasionally, but if you need to, it's a good idea to figure out which frames that you're going to use the break, and then put a keyframe on either side of that as far as for the point animation. Otherwise, your rig's going to get all sorts of funky like later on. So you keyframe point animation on either side of where you need to break it, and then use those keyframes in the middle to break the rig.
Okay.
And add keyframes in the middle to break the rig. But you have to go back to what the story you're trying to tell is.
Exactly.
If you have a character that needs to cry, then you have to build into the rig the ability to be sad. Like you have to be able to build in a mouth that turns down and eyes that well up with tears. In this rig, at the end of our film, the one that I did with my wife here. Oh, that's not the right file. Let's figure out which one is. This might be it here. Nope, that's not it. But there's a shot at the end with her crying. Here we go. So I had to build in a little bit of extra stuff for this rig.
Mm-hmm.
So she reads it, and it's almost a mirror copy of the first scene. But then I did a frame by frame of the crying.
Oh, okay. Cool. Okay.
So I took that main rig and then added some functionality for the bottom lids. And let's see if I can get onto the rig here. For some reason, the names aren't coming up on these bones, even though it says, okay, here we go. Mouth control, underlids. So that got a new thing that got put in.
Okay.
So it just kind of pops
Mm-hmm.
because underlids really don't take that much to get up. So the action didn't end up being very long inside the smartphone. But I just went into that main model again and added the functionality, and then put in the frame by frame layer on top, and it ended up turning out pretty well.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's very cool. Yeah, no, that's actually a question I definitely wondered myself. Going back to rigs and just talking about different shots and things, let's see here, do you prefer to make separate rigs for front, side, 3/4 turns, or do you make one rig that uses tons of smart bones to turn itself around?
I tend to go for the simplicity for my rigs.
Mm-hmm.
I usually the farthest I'll go is a 180. So from side to front to side.
Mm-hmm.
But I tend to like to do something that is like this, where she'll go from 3/4 to 3/4.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of my robots here has some functionality where it goes side to side. Let's see the head turn. Look at that. So, he's got some stuff. There was some funkiness I didn't quite solve with the eyes going around, but I wanted him to be able to spin his head around.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's got that functionality built into him. And then he'll be able to look up and down. That, you built in a little bit of perspective in the head. Torso turn. The model's a little broken there. And then turn up and down. Right hand open, close. All that good stuff. Left hand open, close. Actually, this bone here got messed up because I changed the hand into a microphone on the other rig. So this was another case of reuse where he needed to sing. So I put a microphone in one hand.
That's awesome. Going back to the other questions here. So sorry, I'm kind of going back and forth through the little outline we had, and then
No, it's fine. This is an informal thing.
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave it on my screen, though, so we don't get any more technical hiccups.
Okay.
Unless you want to put it on you, which is fine.
Oh man, I'm already sweating as bad as it is. All right, let's see here. We can go ahead and switch it back and forth. So going back to the chat questions here, and we'll basically just use this time to answer the questions and everything. As far as the whole how to set up your rig for your shots, I'm pretty sure Mike did a really good job explaining all of that. So we'll just go through the questions here. Let's see where we were at. So one of the questions I was asked is, as far as storyboards, do you prefer digital versus paper?
I prefer digital all the way with storyboards.
Okay.
So much more latitude to change things. Boards change all the time. You know, there was a story about the great Pixar storyboard artist Joe Ranft, who, when he was working on Toy Story, spent 2 weeks boarding a sequence, only for John Lasseter to come back, and really it just didn't gel with him. So he just grabbed everything that he had on the boards, pulled it off the boards, and said, "Well, let's work this out then." And they just re-storyboarded it all there in that meeting. And so the nature of storyboards changes all the time, and digital really helps with getting that done quicker.
Awesome. And what kind of software do you use for your storyboard software?
Right now I'm using Storyboard Pro.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So whoever that was that asked that question, looks like it was Douglas. Looking into, let's see here. Oh man. Sorry, this thing keeps on freezing on me. Every time a new comment comes up, it goes all the way down to the bottom. So let's at the top there.
Well, there was a question about how to set up a fight scene.
Oh yeah. How would you go about setting up a fight scene?
Well, a fight scene is all about cinematography. So you have to nail your cinematography first before you start rigging characters. And again, it goes back to analysis of the storyboard. What does your character have to do? Does their hand turn into a flamethrower that you have to rig into your animation? Do your characters have to get bloody? Do they have to change? Do you have to show bruises and cuts and things on them? So you'll have to add that into your storyboard in terms of the functionality of your rig. But I mean, setting up a fight scene is all in storyboards.
No, that's a really good point. Yeah, because I actually one of the courses that I taught, one of the free courses that I taught, it came down to that. Like I had to do a lot of storyboard planning, even though it's this really simple scene. It was just basically a robot mech versus a donut. The donut's just rolling through the town, and it was basically, how do I make this dramatic? And so I had it zoomed in on the donut, and it was just kind of crashing through the city and everything, and people screaming. And then the robot comes crashing down, and it's all zoomed in, and then it just shows the shot of the robot's head and the end of the donut, and then it all pans back. And yeah, that's basically that is a really good point. It's basically just cinematography. Because I was trying to figure out how to do it just outside view, just one shot, and it wasn't working as far as the drama that I was trying to achieve.
For Future Worm, we just did an episode with a giant robot fight. So that was really fun. And again, it's all about cinematography, picking your shots. Who throws a punch and when do they throw the punch? Does somebody get their trash beat? Does somebody, obviously have an upper hand? I mean, that's filmmaking for setting up a fight scene.
Mm-hmm.
Then once you have your shots nailed down, do you go close on somebody getting nailed in the face and you see all the ripples or whatever like that? You'll have to build that into a rig. And that might be one of those specialty pose rigs that you'll have to do. I mean, every once in a while, you'll just need to straight up old school it and rig for a scene.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good point. So regarding your planning and storyboarding, can you walk us through your storyboard process? Kind of on both like both smaller scale personal projects compared to what you've had to do on a larger scale project?
I usually start by figuring out what my beats are. And I'm going to see about changing this to not sharing the screen because I think we're past that part now. Can you see me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So setting up your, like I call it putting up your tent poles before you put up the tent. Figure out what the important story beats are. Okay, so give me a story, McCoy.
Oh gosh.
All right, too late. Let's go back to your donut and robot fight. Okay.
Okay.
First of all, in a story about a donut versus giant robot, you have to figure out where did the giant donut come from? Does it fall out of the sky? Is radioactive waste being dumped in the refuse bin of a donut shop, and all of a sudden the donut is radioactive and giant and grows up? So that would be like the inciting incident of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Then you would go and find out where does that story go and how does it end. See, the robot comes down because the donut is causing havoc throughout the city. You see that sort of thing in like the Powerpuff Girls all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And, they start with the city of Townsville, little quiet hamlet or whatever, and then you see whoa, giant monster, and he's already there. That's the inciting incident. Then the Powerpuff Girls have to come down, put the smack down on the monster, and then usually find out that it's not what they seemed, and they figure it out, and then it's resolved and they rebuild Townsville. Anime Studio, again, I'll reiterate, it's a tool to use for making your films. If you are serious about making films, you have to study filmmaking. If you see a story, what makes it a good story?
Mm-hmm.
You have to sit down and analyze it. I mean, go back and look at some of your favorite movies and see, why you care when you watch it. I mean, have you ever watched a movie, then you just watched it and you just did not care about anything that happened in it?
Yeah.
And then you watch, like, I watch a movie like Lord of the Rings or something like that, and you see the characters and how they progress, and you actually genuinely care about them at the end.
Mm-hmm.
You care about what happens to Aragorn. You care about what happens to Frodo. You care about what happens to Gimli. Where Gimli kind of comes off as that brash, arrogant, kind of a burly, smack-talking dwarf. And then at the end, he becomes such a genuinely great character. I just remember like little things like when Legolas asks him if he wants a box to stand on in the Two Towers. That's filmmaking. You care about those characters at the end. So you have to figure out in your films what's going to make your character somebody besides your mom's going to want to watch. Because I mean, let's be honest. If you've ever been to a Comic-Con, people can get pretty brutal. So you could watch something and you get that comic book guy. It's like worst cartoon ever.
Yeah.
There's people out there that are looking at people's stuff and not being doers themselves, just make judgment calls. A world full of critics and a handful of artists. But as an artist, you have to figure out what is going to make your characters something that other people are going to want to care about.
Mm-hmm.
And that just comes down to learning how to make films.
Awesome. Yeah. No, that's very true. Going to another question here, Mike. As far as Anime Studio, have you been able to use that? I mean, have you been able to use that at all at Disney, kind of in any cartoon scenes?
Not yet. We took a meeting at Film Roman a while back to do some stuff with Anime Studio at Film Roman, but then the studio had changed and they got bought by Waterman Entertainment, and so I don't know where that conversation is, but we were there at CTNX last year with Mike Clifton and Michi Cantonese,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to get the word out. But I mean, it has a lot of stuff going for it, Anime Studio. not only is it a lot less expensive than a lot of other products, but it has a lot of versatility that you can use to make films with.
Yeah, that kind of leads into the next question here. Do you think Anime Studio is robust enough to, let's see here. Oh, I lost the question. To handle that level of animation?
Yeah, I think the tools are there. I just think that you know, you just gotta pair the talent with the tools.
True.
You know what I mean? Like, I think right now Anime Studio is in a place that's poised to make an impact. I think a lot of it's moved and advanced in great ways that we're seeing now with the new frame by frame options. It's got you know, the reference layers now. It's got the target bones. It's got all this stuff. And when I showed it off to our executive at Film Roman, she was just like, "Oh my gosh, like the dynamic bones alone would save us all sorts of money." I mean, and they're an animation production house. But it just comes down to users like all of you guys, you know, turning out great projects. Because if you can show an executive at a studio, I made this in Anime Studio, it took me a month, and they'll be like, "It took you a month? It would take us 3 months to do this in Flash, or it would take us 3 months or 4 months to draw it, like hand draw it, or it would take 6 months to send out to a Korean studio or a Canadian studio to do." You know, if you can show that your work is not only better and more efficient, then, you know, an executive's gonna look at that and be like, "Well, darn, Anime Studio is cheaper too. We have to pay, you know, X amount of thousands of dollars to get this, you know, latest and greatest animation package, and we can get this one for you know, $300. Are you kidding me?" You know, it's stuff like that that's gonna get Anime Studio into a professional studio environment.
Yeah, no,
it's
definitely.
you guys making cool films.
Yeah, let's keep at it, guys, because oh my gosh, that would be awesome to get at that professional level of animation and get that get into the spotlight there.
You know, don't ignore your nuts and bolts animation training, though. You know, Anime Studio, again, like I said, is a tool, but you have to know how to be a good animator first and foremost. You need to know how to turn a character in space, or how to make them act. You know, one of the great things I like the new frame by frame stuff for is I can lay out a scene and do my rough key poses that I can then hit in the model. You know what I mean? You can go in and find out where your keys are in the animation. And if you don't know what real animation keys are, then get Eric Goldberg's book, Character Animation Crash Course. That book will give you some nice schooling fast. You set down where your keyframes are. A key is what your character is doing, and then you figure out your in-betweens, which is how they're doing it. And then you can use your rig to do the full animation once you've got your basis and everything set up.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I remember we were talking about this, and for those of you that are here from the group, that's kind of just going back to that, knowing your principles of animation. Anime Studio is more just kind of a tool, but knowing the principles of animation is basically it's key. It's something that I'm actually still learning how to do, because animation is something that, I don't know, you just build upon it each and every day. But Anime Studio is a tool to get you there. But I personally, and this is advice that I got from you, Mike, is draw it out first on paper, storyboard it, and things like that. So that's really good advice for sure.
Yeah, draw it out, make sure that it works, and then do the animation on top of it. You know, like one of the biggest fallacies that you see with people that want to animate something is that they're like, "Yeah, I'm going to build a rig, I'm going to make it do all this stuff," but then they're like, "Well, what do I do with it?" And so then they just make animation, and it's just like, okay, what am I looking at? I'm not sure. You know, so figure out, plan it out first. You know, if you're gonna do like I don't know, say you have, you know, post-apocalyptic Star Wars desert that you're going to be animating. Set your stage and figure out what you want it to do, and then start working on the animation. You know, not the other way around. Don't rig your character and then be like, okay, what am I going to make it do? It's like, this is what the story is. This is what I'm going to make it do, and then rig it appropriately to make it do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't put your cart before the horse, to coin or to use an old expression.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. Looking at the time here, Mike, do you have anything here on to close with that you want to talk about that I probably didn't mention or we might have missed?
I don't think so. Is there any other questions that you guys have?
I don't see. It's just kind of a lot of chatter back and forth in the chats here. So I think it doesn't look like there's any other questions. So okay. So Mike Morris. So I have down in the description. That's what I was trying to say before. But I have down in the description, I have his 2 Facebook pages. We got Animike Art and Awesome Dudeness. And then you can also find Mike on Tumblr at animike.tumblr.com. And then do you have anything else, Mike, that as far as, do you have like any tutorials or anything like that?
I haven't had time to do any tutorials in the last so often. I mean, a while back, I put a rig up there for a different kind of facial rigging that people can check out. And I showed that to you, McCoy. And then you know, I'm not quite as active on putting up stuff in social media. I'm trying to get better, but work gets so like crazy and tasking that sometimes you want to come home and you don't want to think about it for a while. But if you go to my page on Facebook, Animike Art, you can ask me questions or, you know, see what's going on with anything that I'm up to. And I try and get back to people as quickly as I can. Or, you know, I'm also fairly active on the Anime Studio Pros page. So if you have questions there, if you want to, you know, if for any reason you want to talk to me about it, then, you know, I'm open to people talking to me about stuff. Okay,
awesome. One thing to close on here, Mike, that I think is actually a really good question. So one of the where did it just go? There's more and more questions popping up right now. What was the best advice that you were given by an animator? So you starting out before you started with Simpsons and everything, what was the best advice that you got from an animator?
I think I've gotten a lot of good advice from people over the years. But one of the things that I always try to remember is you may know what's going on in your story, but that doesn't mean that your audience knows what's going on in your story. Sometimes what's really clear in your head may not be clear to somebody else. So build a network or group of people that you can rely on to help build stories. That's good advice that I've found. You know, strive for clarity in your work. And always another thing is don't be precious with things. And what I mean by that is, you know, if you're working on a story and somebody tells you, I don't get it, you know, unless you know for a fact that they're trying to be mean to you, then don't take it personally. Don't take it as an affront to your artwork. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes people don't progress because they just get so emotionally involved with something that they're doing, even if it's not working. Mm-hmm. And then when you tell them it's not working, then they get all upset, and you know, you can't be like that. You have to like take some time to, I mean, you know, if you're working on something, you work really hard on something and people are like, yeah, that sucks, man. Then, you know, obviously you're going to have your feelings hurt. But take that and don't, you know, don't get all down in the dumps about it. You just have to, you know, realize, are they trolling me, or is there something that's wrong with this? And go back and then, you know, figure out how you can step up to the next level. Develop your eye and develop your sense of storytelling. And, you know, take advice, but take advice with a grain of salt. You know, I had a story teacher one time that was telling me all these different things to do in a story that I was telling, but it wasn't necessarily a story that I wanted to tell. So I should have taken that advice and been like, you know, that's a cool idea, but that's not what I'm trying to do. You know, so take advice, but, you know, also stay true to your vision. But don't get upset and emotionally broken because somebody tells you that something that you're doing isn't working.
Yeah. No, that's really good advice.
I mean, imagine what you're going to do if you get so emotionally wrapped up in something that you go and cry for an hour if somebody tells you it's not working. You know, try doing that with a director in a production environment. You know?
Yeah.
then it'll just be like, yeah, I have to tiptoe around stuff because if I tell this guy anything, he's going to go ball in a corner. You know?
That's very true. Yeah. Kind of an example that I had is it was actually for Jeremy Jones on animestudiotutor.com. My very first animation that I made ever. It was even before I can do like a walk cycle. I tried doing a quadruped. Well, it was an ant, so it had 6 legs. And I thought I did so good and everything on it, and I put all this effort and all this work into it. But just that, I didn't plan it out very good enough. So to the point where nobody else would know what's going on. The contest was on drawing like an animating an ant and then just developing whatever kind of story. Showed it to my dad, and that was my first critique. And that was like my first like, oh my gosh, do I really want to keep going with this? Because after I showed it to him, he was just like, okay. It was just like one of those things like, oh my gosh, what the heck? Like, I've worked so hard on this. And that's so important. Like if you understand it, awesome, that's great. You might have put all this work into it, but in the end, it's how are other people going to see it? And that's what you got to keep in mind. Have the end in mind when you start is basically who's my audience and what are they going to be getting out of this? What are they going to be feeling? Along with seeing and everything else.
I mean, or what are you trying to tell your audience is another thing. You know? Like, what message do you have for your audience? If you're making a film about something, what are you trying to say? You know, are you making a film, oh, the world is too polluted, or are you making a film like, you know, Disney just did a short called Feast, which was a story of a stray dog who gets an owner and they just pig out on junk food all the time. And I won't, you know, spoil it. But the whole thing is about that dog and shown from his point of view, and it's very, very well done. Yeah. You know, but it had a message in that story, and I'll let you figure out what that message was. But you know, you can see different stories that have different messages. You know, like, you know, the overarching theme of Hunger Games is people should be free, you know, and not burdened by you know, totalitarian rule. So sorry for those of you who haven't seen the Hunger Games, but, you know, it's kind of been a little while. But yeah, so be open to what your audience is going to understand, but be true to what you want to tell them. If that makes sense. I hope that makes sense.
It does. Yeah, no, that's really good advice.
Want to make sure that I'm communicating.
Yeah, exactly.
It is about communication, you know. If you're talking to somebody and you're speaking English and they only speak German, are you going to be able to communicate very effectively? You know, so you have to figure out what is like a universal thing that I can do that, you know, a lot of people will get and understand.
No, a really good point about that. Just real quick is there's an animated film. I can't remember what it was that I saw or where I saw it, but it was all in Japanese. But you can, because it was so well written and so well staged and applying all the principles and everything of story and animation. Even though I didn't know what was being said, I knew what they were saying just based off of just action and the story in general. So that, yeah, that's also a good point, I guess, to keep in mind, at least for me, is even if the person doesn't speak the language, do they still understand what's going on?
Right.
Does the story tell itself, basically?
Well, I mean, you could watch one of the great comedians is Buster Keaton. You know, you can watch a Buster Keaton movie, has no words in it. You know, I was watching a short documentary about that guy, and at the time, it's in silent movies, people were using up to 240 title cards because you couldn't say anything. But they were you doing everything through dialogue.
Uh-huh.
For Buster Keaton, his top film that had the most title cards was 56.
Oh, wow.
So he showed it instead of telling it. You know, that's one of the things that people have complaints of with you know, some of the Star Wars prequels, was that it was all jibber jabber and not enough, you know, seeing them using the Force. They talk about it, you know, but they don't actually show as much. So why tell when you can show? You know, a great exercise for young and you know, animators starting out is a pantomime exercise where there's no talking. You have to do everything in just action. You know, a really fun exercise is having somebody do a pickpocket, you know, to animate somebody pickpocketing somebody else. So
Yeah.
you have the smooth people who just kind of slide up behind and, you know, a quick grab and they're done. Or, you know, you can there's all sorts of different kinds of things that you can try with an exercise like that.
No, that's that's a good point. That's really cool. Well, Mike, I think we are we'll go ahead and we'll wrap it up. I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to talk with all of us. There's a ton that I've learned, and I know that everyone here that's been watching has learned. So definitely, just first off, just want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. That's very appreciated.
Hey, it's no problem, man. I hope somebody got something out of it, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I know I did. And I definitely will be going over this video a ton of times because there's a lot in here that I still need to learn. But yeah, no, again, thank you. And again, Mike's information is all down in the description. Check out his links, like his pages, follow him on Tumblr. As you can see here, he's a really talented guy. He's got a lot of potential for the animation industry, and we look forward to the TV show Future Worm.
Oh yeah, thanks. But you know, if I can leave you guys with anything, animation is a lifelong growing experience. So it just takes practice and it takes the grit to keep going. You know, so don't quit. Just keep going. Keep making films. Don't noodle. Don't go back and rework the same thing over and over and over again until you feel like you get it right. Just start over with something next and just keep progressing that way. But, you know, animation, lifelong, keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. All right. Well, I just want to thank everyone for joining us here in the webinar. If you like this webinar, you can actually support the Facebook group that I run. I have set up a Patreon page to kind of help out, kind of give me more support there with getting resources and things like that. I would really like to set it up on a professional level, like Smith Micro has, where we don't do it through YouTube, but we actually have another venue we can do this through, and just get this set up a lot better altogether. Also, I have down in the link description below, I have my Gumroad website that I run. Basically, just I'm giving away free stuff. Everything's on there is free. But if you like to support me and support the group, you can basically pay what you think is fair as well. But from Mike and myself, we just want to thank you so much for joining us in this pros hangout. Definitely plan on doing more in the future. And if you want to see more and kind of give topics of what you'd like to see, definitely let me know. But again, thanks everyone for joining us, and have a good night.
Good night.